Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Ambrose Blofield back again here from the Sales Mastery Company. And today we're talking about lessons we can learn about resilience, vision, and achieving incredible results in sales and in business from the golden dominators in their field of the Kellogg's Corporation, 3M Corporation, Dyson Corporation. So if you've been interacting with us on social media or via email recently, you should have received access to this workbook. If not, please immediately send an email to admin@salesmasterycompany.com and share with our team what the topic is for today, lessons from 3M, Dyson, and more. And then they'll send you through a copy of the workbook. On the second page of the workbook, we've got a brief welcome and a little bit of background about us. Essentially, we've spent 19 and a half years traveling the world into 12 different countries, helping to coach people in that sales and marketing, customer service space to make more money, helping sales rep double their commission checks at the end of the year, and helping business owners have far more confidence about the results from their sales team, in particular, by focusing on the 5 critical sales growth levers. Today, we're taking aspects that we share in our sales mastery program and our sales manager program. In particular, today, I want you to think about the fact that you've got a long-term career in sales, or you're a sales owner or sales manager or sales leader, and you need to produce long-term results for your business. Now, there's no question around dopamine hits that comes from making short-term sales, and there's no question that we can get a little bit of thrill, a little bit of tingle all over our body when we achieve a massive outcome for an individual project. But you are going to be working for the vast majority of your life. And one thing I massively respect by people in North America is they often see sales as a true profession, just like plumbing or the trades, an electrician, or likewise somebody working law or accountancy sees law and accountancy as a trade. They tend to see their careers from a long-term perspective. Whenever I'm asked to speak to university students or asked to speak to high school students who are thinking about going into a career in sales and hopefully a long-term career in sales management, often I'll say to them is your first 3 jobs that hopefully will last your first decade of work, maybe slightly shorter than that, should be based on the decision for who's going to train you and coach you best. Because typically how much you learn directly relates to how much you earn long term, given that as a manager, business owner, or salesperson, you get the chance to share in the spoils of war, so to speak. So I want to be clear here. We're living in this instant, give it to me now, give it to me now, give it to me now. And I think it does a lot of damage to our mindsets. And it means that we might make a career choice or likewise make a choice day to day in sales to go after the lower hanging fruit. Now, that's not to say we shouldn't sweep up the low-hanging fruit, but you cannot build a long-term business and you cannot build a long-term career just going after the quick, easy wins, because then you're not being strategic enough. So Kellogg's, which is typically, that graced most breakfast tables all around the world, certainly it's hard for me to travel to any international hotel group traveling around the world and not to see a Kellogg's product or a Kellogg's copycat product somewhere around the world. Now, there were 2 brothers who were running the sanatorium, and that was to help people kind of get themselves a bit cleansed and fixed up. They dried out some cornflakes and actually then started giving it to their customers. And when their customers had sobered up and sorted themselves out and went back to their busy, rich lives, they said, I really like having milk and cornflakes as opposed to a cooked breakfast every single day. But it was William, the younger brother and the less successful brother in the world of becoming a doctor, who's treating patients, who actually latched onto the fact of maybe we've got a business here selling boxes of cereal to the customers that have been there. And of course, as the word gets out, to the friends and family. So he was the one who looked after the customers, sorted out local grocery stores as a distribution train, and managed to do massive amounts in their local town by forming a foundation. And when the Kellogg's brand was selling cornflakes around the world, or Rice Krispies and other brands around the world, they were pumping money back into the local economy and back into their local town. Did absolutely phenomenal effort. But what was amazing was that even though he had a bit of a chip on his shoulder, allegedly, because it was his brother who was making most of the money and most of the prestige as a qualified doctor and psychiatrist, it was actually William that managed to drive to create his team and actually form great long-term relationships. Now, let's just look at some of those tactics that he was using. So one of the things that he was doing was to say to people, if you get us stocked at your local grocery store, bearing in mind, we didn't have massive big box retail or big box stores, supermarkets, it was more corner stores that people bought groceries from. If an end user got it listed, they made 0 money and actually lost money on that end user for 12 months. Why? because he knew he needed to get the distribution secured, because not just cornflakes was being picked up on by people eating around the country, but it was an incredibly competitive market because everybody else said, well, we can produce wheat and corn products. We'll move into this brand new trade. So he was creating breakfast cereals. It's hard to imagine this 100 years ago, but creating breakfast cereals as a category of breakfast consumed items that was affordable, packageable, distributable. And he needed to get the space on grocers' stores, remembering there would have been something, possibly rice, possibly fruit, possibly vegetables, on those shop floors, so to speak, on the aisle ends, so to speak, of those grocery stores. But he could invest long term because his mentality. Now, of course, we can sit here and go, well, of course, he could have a long-term mentality because Kellogg's Group are a 100-year-old company. But to be clear, in those first few years, they weren't. To be clear, in terms of family ownership and family pressures, he was expected to turn a profit very quickly. So he had to reject the short-term need of let's make money every single day, let's make money off every box, and start to take that long-term strategic approach. As I said, in the last 20 years, since the development of the internet and then social media, I think we've expected instantaneous results, and that's bad. So if you're a salesperson, you need to start thinking more strategically, start thinking longer term, and develop your skills of persuasion to your business owner or to your sales director to get them to back off demanding short-term returns and get them aligned to where you think the long-term value is going to come from. It was no different from James Dyson from Dyson Group. Not only did James Dyson have a product that was twice the cost of his opposing Hoover brands, typically, he also realized he didn't have much in the way of sales or marketing experience. So him trying to go to market was incredibly tough. In fact, he had an incident trying to set up with a distributor into another continent who literally ripped off his design, ripped off his ideas, and then said, I'm going to lawyer up. If you want to take us to the cleaners, we're going to take you to the cleaners first because we'll play a very mean legal battle. It took James Dyson a long time before he became seen as one of Britain's richest men and one of the richest billionaires in the world. He was selling a product that was twice the price of everybody else. And another lesson that's worth for the salespeople that we coach around the world to remember, people talk in Europe and the UK about hoovering, because Hoover was the first brand that they associated with vacuum cleaners. So they were even going against a brand that was the actual name, like we often use to Google it, is to use the name of the company, meaning this is the platform I'm going to use to search for something online. So he went totally against it. In the same way in the UK, sellotape, in America, Scotch tape became associated with that particular product category. So he was massively up against it. It took him years to get on resellers. Think about that. 2 years where you think you've invented something, you've tried to distribute it, you've been ripped off, it's cost you a lot, and you're still more expensive than everything else. And why should they sell something they've never heard of? Because the design was better and because the effectiveness was better. Again, took a long time to persuade people. The whole thing, you've got to be clear here, you were also going against a business model of the reseller market where they knew if they sold a vacuum cleaner, the customer would come in every few months and buy more bags, so they get an ongoing income stream. So not only were they having to sell something and persuade the consumer to buy something at twice the price, but they didn't have the customer coming back into store to buy bags and bags and bags. That is a tough sell. As someone who's done on-the-road selling through distributors and resellers myself in UK and Europe before, it's a hard thing to do when you say to somebody, I'm going to reduce the number of income lines you have as a reseller and as a distributor. So from his perspective, had to take that long-term view. Now, if you're a business owner or a sales manager, when you do your recruitment of staff members, you've got to take a long-term view. Yes, we want our sales team up and rolling very, very quickly. But time and time again, I've had to counsel and commiserate with a business owner or as a sales manager who hired a salesperson for a job because they have industry experience and because they have industry contacts, which typically produces a quicker start and typically quicker payback on somebody's wage. But of course, if somebody has sold themselves to you based on their industry contacts, eventually they would have maximized those contacts or the use of those contacts. Unless this person has a growth mindset, in a year's time, they're going to be of little use to you long term because they've used that competitive advantage up very, very quickly. Now, the 3M Corporation, as I mentioned, Scotch tape is one of their brands, just like Post-it notes is one of their brands. They innovate regularly. So what are they able to do? They let every member of their company, particularly their scientists, simply play and become inventive. Now, if you're a business owner, this is quite scary. Having staff members doing things that don't contribute to the KPIs and the activities to produce short-term results. Because, of course, the numbers never lie. Most people understand that. We've got good CRMs to measure people's activities. But their philosophy is about remaining a multi-billion-dollar innovation-driven company. If I were to ask you as a sales manager or business owner, what's your number one asset? And you were to respond with, oh, our staff, and then I were to quiz you, why? If it's because your staff hit higher numbers, then yes, keep measuring the numbers. But if it's because your staff members have more knowledge, more skills, more technical understanding, anticipating customer wants and needs or market wants and needs, you need to invest more time in developing skills, developing knowledge, and sometimes letting them think creatively, challenge the status quo, and make recommendations. If you're a salesperson talking to customers all the time, you're probably listening to what customers' pain points are from your opposition, even for your own products and services. Please make sure you share that information up the food chain, because knowledge is power when it comes to guiding innovation and creative thinking. It's really important that you on the front line share that information. Now, slight word of warning for all parties listening to this right now. Just because you've had two people say to you, you're too expensive, doesn't mean you're too expensive. If we can please remember one golden rule that I typically teach people on our sales academy, sales mastery program, and even when we're teaching people customer service, 75% of people on average globally will spend more for a given product or service that's identical to something else if the sales, customer service, or marketing experience and journey was better. That means 3 out of 4 people are happy to pay more. So if you're hearing that, and people saying you're too expensive, that doesn't necessarily mean that is fact. Typically, 25% of people are price sensitive, 75% of people are not. So please keep that in mind. Please make sure you're innovative. Make sure you challenge the status quo and do so respectfully if you're a salesperson. And make sure you embrace innovation and ideas and customer feedback through your sales team if you're the sales manager, director, or business owner. Now, one of the underlying themes from 3M, James Dyson, and the Kellogg's Group is you're going to need to have resilience. Typically, Thomas Edison is allegedly said these words: success comes from 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration, meaning good creative ideas might account for 1% of your success, but you have to execute with discipline. One of the things that we do in our accountability aspect of our sales academy is every week we're live online with people, holding them accountable, keeping them motivated, making sure they keep that high level of perspiration and perseverance, and they don't just take the good ideas that we're teaching them every single month and actually just not apply them, because what's the point? Now, if you want to interact with us, give us feedback on today's session, feel free to flick us an email, as I mentioned before, to admin@salesmasterycompany.com, or connect with us more on LinkedIn and other platforms. Or likewise, if you want to find out how we can help your team, either a sales academy, a sales mastery program, or even a sales manager accelerator, flick us an email, send us a text. We'd love to hear what you know about today's subjects. If you've got any extra insight into James Dyson's corporation, into the Kellogg's Group, or into 3M, please share it online. Tag me in on that. I'd always like to learn and grow myself. Now, I've been Ambrose Blowfield with the Sales Mastery Company. And as I said before, the only thing that matters in life is taking action. So be sure to take action now.